Welcome to Wallace on Wire. Today we're talking about Anwar's defense of inviting U.S. President Trump to the ASEAN summit. So the moment it was announced, that U.S. President Trump is scheduled to attend the 47th ASEAN summit here in Kuala Lumpur this October. Wow, the debate just exploded.
Yeah, it wasn't just about security or logistics, was it? It immediately became about ideology.
Exactly. It feels like it just drew a sharp line right down the middle of our political landscape.
And it forces this really fundamental question about foreign policy, doesn't it? I mean, is it smart? Is it pragmatic diplomacy to engage directly with someone seen as, well, controversial, especially given past U.S. policies on Gaza, which are heavily criticized here?
Right. Or is it seen as maybe compromising on Malaysia's principles? That seems to be the core tension playing out right now.
That's exactly it, that friction.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. The Prime Minister, Anwar Ibrahim, he didn't shy away from it. He actually defended the decision pretty strongly, didn't he?
He did. And interestingly, he made that defense during an event focused specifically on the conflict with Gaza Gathering, Malaysian Ways, Palestinian Freedom.
The setting itself says a lot. Defending an invitation to Trump at a pro-Palestinian event. That really highlights the tightrope he's walking.
Absolutely. And his core argument, what really stands out, is his insistence that this isn't about surrendering principles. He calls it negotiation. High-stakes negotiation, perhaps.
For the greater good, is that the line?
Essentially, yes. The ultimate aim, he argues, is achieving peace in Gaza. And sometimes, he suggests, that goal has to come before, immediate political comfort or popularity back home.
Okay, but let's push on that a bit. The U.S. position on the conflict isn't exactly a secret. So what's the specific strategic gain here? What does he hope to achieve by having Trump here in KL that couldn't be done through, say, normal diplomatic channels?
That's a really good question. And I think the thinking might be, well, it's a bit of a gamble, maybe. He could be trying to use direct engagement face-to-face to bypass the sort of entrenched State Department positions, the bureaucracy that can be quite rigid.
So a personal touch. Trying to get around the system.
Potentially. By bringing President Trump here, the idea might be to get specific high-level assurances, maybe on humanitarian corridors, or perhaps using Malaysia's influence within ASEAN to secure commitments on aid funding for Palestinians funding the U.S. often has a big say in.
So it's less symbolic, more operational. A calculated move to try and, unlock some policy shifts through that direct top-level dialogue.
That seems to be the rationale presented, yes. A top-down approach.
But it definitely comes with a massive political cost domestically. And to justify it, the Prime Minister reached back into Malaysian history, didn't he? He used a very specific comparison.
He did, and it's a deeply resonant one here. He brought up the nation's founding father, Tunku Abdul Rahman.
Right. How did he frame that comparison?
He likened the situation negotiating with a global power like the U.S., seen by some as, difficult or even hostile on certain issues. He likened it to Tunku leading the delegation to London, for independence.
Going to meet the colonial powers.
Exactly. And the PM was quite explicit. He described those colonial powers Tunku met as the oppressors of Malaya and the wider Islamic world at that time. But Tunku still went. He sat down with them.
To get independence.
So the analogy is incredibly potent in Malaysian politics. By framing engagement with Trump or the U.S. administration generally as potentially dealing with a powerful, maybe even oppressive influence on global matters like Gaza, he transforms the invitation. It stops being just a friendly gesture and becomes, in his narrative, a necessary act, almost a brave one.
So the message to critics is basically, Tunku negotiated with the enemy for our freedom, so why shouldn't we negotiate with perceived adversaries now for Palestinian freedom?
Precisely. It reframes the whole thing. It makes this tricky diplomatic dance seem like a patriotic duty almost, following in the footsteps of the founder.
So the argument boils down to, if sitting down with President Trump, no matter how awkward that handshake feels, might potentially move things forward even a little bit for Gaza, then it's worth it. Maybe even morally necessary.
That's the core of his justification. If peace is the goal, and if other ASEAN nations share that goal, then bringing the most influential global player, in his view, into that regional conversation is not just pragmatic, it's essential.
Okay, a strong case made from his perspective. But as we said, it hasn't exactly smoothed things over domestically. Let's pivot to the opposition's reaction. They see this very, very differently.
Oh, absolutely. The criticism was immediate, and it was sharp, particularly from Parti Islam Si Malaysia.
Right, the main opposition bloc. They have a strong stance on principled foreign policy, especially concerning Muslim issues.
And They fundamentally disagree, it seems, with the optics of this invitation. They see it as giving, well, undue legitimacy or recognition to a leader whose policies they strongly oppose.
And their planned response is quite something. What did their Secretary General Taqiyuddin Hassan say?
He stated quite clearly that if President Trump does attend the summit, the opposition bloc intends to request a meeting with him directly.
Wow. Okay, so not just criticizing from the sidelines, they want FaceTime.
Yes. And this highlights a fascinating contrast in approaches, doesn't it? You have Anwar pursuing this top-down calculated negotiation strategy, trying to use the formal summit setting for leverage behind closed doors. And then you have the opposition opting for direct public engagement. It's almost like a planned high-level protest conducted right there on the summit's fringes.
So they want to use his presence here on Malaysian soil to deliver a message, a direct protest against U.S. policies regarding Israeli actions.
It looks that way. They don't seem to be aiming for subtle policy influence through negotiation in the same way. It's more about making a principled stand face-to-face. Confrontation, perhaps, rather than negotiation.
That's a critical difference. It really shows the tension isn't about whether the U.S. president is influential. Everyone agrees on that. It's about how Malaysia should engage with that influence.
Exactly. Anwar says through strategic dialogue, even with the political risks. The opposition says through direct, principled objection.
Which brings us back to the domestic side of things. This is a huge gamble for the Prime Minister, isn't it? Considering how strong public feeling is about Gaza, inviting a figure many oppose must have a real cost, maybe even in terms of political stability or capital. You could almost put a ringgit value on the political risk.
Oh, it's absolutely a high-stakes political gamble, and the opposition knows this. Public sentiment is running incredibly high. Their plan for a direct meeting, a protest meeting essentially, is designed to tap into that public feeling.
To contrast their moral stance against the government's pragmatism.
Precisely. It forces the Prime Minister onto the defensive, making him justify the means, the invitation itself, not just the stated ends of peace. They're trying to make the optics so difficult, so politically costly, that any potential diplomatic gain seems outweighed by the damage to the government's image at home.
It really makes you think about the pressure leaders face, trying to balance that intense domestic feeling with these complex long-term international goals, especially on an issue as sensitive as Gaza.
You have both sides claiming their actions are purely for the welfare of the Palestinians, but their proposed methods are just poles apart.
So the whole situation around the ASEAN summit seems defined by this clash. The pragmatic argument for engagement, using that Tunku historical parallel, versus the principled demand for direct protest from the opposition.
That's the core tension right now.
But let me ask this, thinking geopolitically. The PM has spent significant political capital to get the U.S. leader here, ostensibly focused on Gaza. What happens if President Trump arrives and decides, to completely change the subject?
That's a huge risk, isn't it?
Yeah. What if he pivots hard to, say, the South China Sea and the rivalry with China? Or pushes his own economic agenda, maybe protectionism, issues that directly impact ASEAN but aren't Gaza?
It raises a really important question, maybe for you listening too. If the guest hijacks the agenda, does the host's entire gamble just collapse? Does the stated moral reason for the invitation become irrelevant if the conversation shifts entirely?
It suggests the PM's strategy could backfire spectacularly, regardless of his intentions regarding Palestine.
It's a risk any leader takes when they host a major global power at a regional meeting. You provide the stage, but you don't always control the performance.
So the success of this whole thing won't just be about some statement on Gaza peace. It'll be measured by whether the political and geopolitical fallout, both here and maybe regionally, was ultimately worth taking such a big risk.
An incredibly complex diplomatic tightrope walk indeed. It will be fascinating to see how it unfolds.
Remember to like and subscribe for more videos like this.